Have you ever had a day like this in the SEC? Wow. Three huge jobs, three of the bigger jobs in college football, open and closed. And here we are on Black Sunday. This has come to be known as Black Sunday, of course, the final day of the regular season on Saturday, and then coaches kicked out the door on Sunday, or what has become more common here in recent years has been that coaches have been leaving their jobs for seemingly greener pastures. All right, let's get right to it. Do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, and I have done the double and triple checking to make sure that the audio should be fine, so please let me know if that is not the case. Even though you can't hear me, if that would be the case, please let me know if we have an issue with the audio. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Please leave those comments and questions there in the chat. We'll be here for a certain period of time. I don't know how long that's going to be, but enough to cover the three big hires in the SEC. Of course, Lane Kiffin, it has yet to become official, but it's all but done. As we have known for a couple of days now, Lane Kiffin to LSU. Of course, Ole Miss is going on to the college football playoff, and they will march on with their defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, apparently being the guy. Lane Kiffin met with his players earlier today, and would you not want to be a fly on the wall? I would have loved to have heard also the exchange, not just between Lane Kiffin and his players, but also Lane Kiffin and his former bosses in regards to whether he had any thought or made a suggestion or pushed or prodded to coach his team during the CFP, or if he is just fine with moving on, knowing that it's in his best interest long-term to get the heck out of Dodge as soon as possible and start working on his 2026 LSU roster. All right, so that's Lane Kiffin to LSU. And obviously, Ole Miss is going to be now another big job opening going into the offseason. We'll see when they name a head coach, and we'll see what the timing of that is, because certainly they don't want that to become too much of a distraction for this team, even though it's going to be separate and detached from what they're trying to accomplish here in 2025. And we do see it all the time where administrations have to go hire a coach during postseason play, bowl play. It has been in the past, while the current team is being coached by an assistant. Okay, so Lane Kiffin to LSU, Ole Miss going forward with Pete Golding during the playoff, and then they're going to obviously look to fill that opening. And then we've got John Sumrall. Even though Florida's last hire, they went by way of the group of five, and they went that route, and it did not work out. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way that they should not have hired John Sumrall, but from a perception standpoint, to appease the fans and get them on their side and get them backing this hire, you would have thought that they would have wanted to go maybe another direction, just in regards to, again, perception. John Sumrall, Billy Napier, two different guys, two different coaches, two different situations, 3 to 4 years separated in terms of where Florida football is. Of course, they wanted to go after Lane Kiffin. That was their target, but Lane Kiffin made it pretty well known, and the reports out there that it was between LSU and Ole Miss there. So Florida marches on with John Sumrall as their new head coach. And then we've got a third situation with Auburn, having lost the Iron Bowl in close fashion against Alabama, with their defensive coordinator, DJ Durkin, apparently in the mix for that job. And the team performing well in the Iron Bowl, except for a litany of mistakes, which has been their calling card in recent years, a la Nebraska and some other teams, Florida State. So we've got Auburn again open and shut as Alex Golesh, South Florida, who has achieved a modicum of success there at South Florida. Certainly, it is a much better program and much better standing than when he took it over. He has much to do with that, although there has certainly been a commitment by the university to upgrade facilities and to go forward into the next phase of South Florida football and competitive college football, wanting to be at the top of their level competing for playoff spots. So 3 huge jobs in the SEC, all filled on one afternoon. I don't know that we've seen that in one day in the past. All right, let's get to the calls. Here we got the real MVP first up.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this Sunday afternoon?
Doing great, DeReal. How are you?
Doing good. I mean, this has been the craziest day for off-season or next season moves. I think maybe in the history of college football. Like 4 coaches have been hired. Coastal Carolina fired their head coach. Michigan State fired their head coach. This has just been an insane day of moves. Ole Miss got rid of a head coach and hired a head coach in the same day. Like, has that ever happened before? There's just so much to keep track of, Mark, that's happening today. To me, the biggest loser of the day is Auburn, and the biggest winner of the day is LSU, just in totality. Do you agree with that?
Well, I definitely agree with the second statement for sure, that LSU was made out with the best coach on the market, and they got the guy that they definitely wanted. I believe that they have gotten somebody who is just as good as Brian Kelly in terms of running a program, but who brings so much more to the table in regards to flair, personality, connection to the player, all of those things above Brian Kelly. So they have upgraded at the head coaching position, even though Lane Kiffin has yet to win, quote unquote, anything to this point. He now has the resources and the backing and everything. And we know that LSU is committed. So they have a coach that is still rather young and energetic and in his prime, or hopefully for them coming into his prime. So LSU, yes, the big winner on the day. The big loser, Auburn. Well, I would say to a certain extent that anybody who did not hire Lane Kiffin that had a vacancy in the SEC in particular, or were on that level, maybe Penn State we could put into that category as well. And we'll have to wait and see what Penn State is able to do here in the next few days or weeks, that everybody by comparison in the SEC or on that level, again, I will just put Penn State there, is a loser in comparison to John Sumrall versus Lane Kiffin, Alex Golesh versus Lane Kiffin, and really Florida and Auburn as programs, by all accounts, over the past 20 or 25 years, are on the same level as LSU, but not able to get it done.
Right. Do you think it was a mistake, just in general, to hire a group of 5 head coaches that have proven very little? Because recently, these G5 to P4 promotions have happened a lot, and almost none of them have worked out. Probably the biggest examples being Billy Napier and Mike Norvell.
Yeah, I had mentioned the other day that I would love to take a deep dive into that and go through maybe the last 15 years, take every power conference job and every group of 5 coach that was elevated for the first time to a power conference job, and see, make some comparative record comparisons of before and after and everything involved, and make a judgment call on whether that was a good hire or not. Mike Norvell, no. Billy Napier, no. Brent Pry, no, but that was a coordinator. Yeah, again, I'm not going to try to sift through the Rolodex upstairs to try to make some determination here, but it doesn't appear to be the way that they would want to go. And as I said off the outset, I don't know if you caught it, I like that Florida made the move that apparently they believed was the right guy for the job, and weren't swayed by the perception that, okay, Billy Napier from the group of 5, and now John Sumrall from the group of 5. So we can't do that. We automatically just dismiss anybody from the group of 5. That they still stuck to their guns and hired the guy that they wanted, or at least the second guy in line or the third guy in line, rather than succumbing to the pressure of hiring a big name. So I will say that on their front, on their account, but I don't know that it was the best hire. I am a bit surprised that they would go that route and not try to come up with somebody who's proven themselves at that level.
Right. Can somebody explain to me what Michigan State's doing? Like, they fired Jonathan Smith after 2 seasons. First off, I think he's a good head coach still. I mean, Michigan State was a complete disaster. The Mel Tucker era was just a complete joke from top to bottom. The only thing that was worth anything was Kenneth Walker during that time. And then they go out and hire Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, to me, Pat Fitzgerald isn't some massive market improvement over Jonathan Smith. Like, it's just a lateral move at best. I would have given Jonathan Smith another year because I don't know what they were expecting at Michigan State this year for Jonathan Smith, but it feels like they're just way over their skis in terms of expectations up there.
I don't completely disagree with you. I get your points because I do think that Jonathan Smith was a good hire. He turned out not to be, or gets an incomplete grade because of only 2 seasons, where the direct comparison to me is Jonathan Smith at Michigan State coaching at the same time that Mike Locksley at Maryland. They just played yesterday. Michigan State won the game. Mike Locksley was given like 6 years of mediocrity at best at Maryland. Jonathan Smith given 2 years at Michigan State and took over a bad situation where Mike Locksley seemed to be on the right trajectory, was on the right trajectory record-wise, but simply has proven over the last 2 years that was a ceiling, at least for him there. And I was more in line with Mike Locksley getting let go than Jonathan Smith. Although we entertained it here, I certainly brought it up. He showed at Oregon State that he can coach. Now, in comparison to Pat Fitzgerald, I agree with you on the Jonathan Smith portion of this. I think he gets an incomplete grade. If he's ever brought up in the future, I'll remind people 2 seasons, bad situation he took over. He just didn't have enough time. Now, whether he was going to turn that thing around, we'll never know. But Pat Fitzgerald, no. If you compare Pat Fitzgerald level of success versus Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, we could have that debate all day. Actually, Jonathan Smith in 2 seasons had a more successful win rate than Pat Fitzgerald did at Northwestern, but obviously Pat Fitzgerald sustained it over time. I think that Michigan State likes his reputation within the coaching fraternity. He's well respected. He also accomplished what he accomplished at Northwestern with less resources, less commitment to football, and did it in the same conference. So I think that they like that. They like the certainty of what Pat Fitzgerald brings, as opposed to, we got Alex Golesh, we got John Sumrall being hired the same day as a Pat Fitzgerald, who the ceiling might be limited, but Michigan State's pretty confident that he knows what he's doing.
Right. I think in terms of just moves of the day, I think it's fine. I just don't get it for Michigan State doing it. If it was Arkansas or even Auburn, it would make more sense to me as an upgrade than what they've gotten. But for Michigan State, I'm just not completely sold into anything, a massive upgrade or even an upgrade at all, to be honest with you. Mark, in terms of the playoff discussion today, I'm not sure if you've been on X or any social medias or any discussion boards. It's getting ugly very quickly, Mark, in terms of it's all rigged. It's a conspiracy against my team. You know, we're intentionally being screwed and all this stuff is happening. And it's from all angles at all skies. Everyone's being screwed over. Everybody has conspiracy against them. I've seen it, like the dumbed down debate where Oklahoma isn't a lock for the playoffs. BYU is a lock for the playoffs. I've just seen every angle possible in every take recently, and I have no idea what the committee's going to do. I do know somebody is going to be completely screwed over. Most likely Vanderbilt, if I had to take a guess, because nobody cares about them because they're Vandy. But do you think this 12-team playoff is a mistake? And the fact it was designed to allow access for more teams, but we're allowing teams like Virginia, Duke, SMU, or not SMU, JMU, or North Texas to make it instead of teams with significantly better resumes who have proven they can at least compete against these top teams.
Well, I think the sport is struggling in this category, in this issue, as it struggled with a lot of different issues over the last 5 years in particular. We've seen more change in this sport in the last 5 years than we saw in the previous 25 years. and most of it's pretty painful and is not going in the right direction. And it's because you've got a collegiate model, you have certain tenets of collegial mindset and approach to it, but you have big business. And so those things are continuing to clash. Therefore, what we have here is this collegial mindset that everybody participates. Yes, we understand that some conferences and some programs are much, much better, perform at a higher level, but they still participate on the field. We still have our MAC schools competing with our Big Ten schools and our Sun Belt schools competing with our SEC schools, et cetera. So there's still, 20% to 25% of the season that is taken up by those games. Therefore, we have an agreement of sorts, a gentlemanly agreement with those conferences and those schools that they be included, since they supplement our level of competition. And we, again, have a longstanding agreement and partnership of sorts with those schools and those conferences. So we are going to allow them, now that we've gone from 4, so that was a reasonable negation to leave them out of a 14 playoff, because that was just senseless. Didn't even certainly they couldn't have a reasonable right to claim a spot in a 14 playoff. But now that we've expanded to 12, we have made that decision. Some people like that, some people don't. I see both sides of it. I hear both sides of it. That, do we go in with the NCAA men's basketball approach that we ensure that most of the tournament involves the best teams in the country, but we are still going to honor conference championships from lower levels and continue with that, knowing that 60 plus spots are taken up out of the 68 by the best teams in the country, and then we're going to reach for the other conference championships? Or are we going to simply shut them out and they can do whatever they want, and we're going to just try to deliver the 12 best teams in the country? I think that there are arguments to both. Obviously, if all you care about is the competition on the field and the best players and the best teams on the field, then it's not a debate. We are not doing it the right way. Now, that said, I do believe that we still have bias against the likes of a Virginia. We just assume that they're not good enough. We haven't completely been proven that. They do play a fairly legitimate schedule, at least against teams that compete against better teams and the elite teams. The results may not be pretty, but they at least play on that level. They can't help what conference schedule they were given. And until proven otherwise against an elite team, we don't know that Virginia is undeserving. We just assume that they are, but they play in the same conference as Miami, that most people seem to be backing for a playoff spot. But Virginia, albeit with one less significant non-conference game that Miami played against Notre Dame that Virginia did not, pretty much played the same schedule, or roughly, a facsimile of the schedule that Miami did, and was able to win 10 games. But there's just a stigma against Virginia football. So I think that what you're talking about, this evaluation of levels of play and who belongs and who doesn't belong, most of it's legitimate differentiation between levels of play, but some of it is perception and even a snob or elitist mentality among the power programs that is not necessarily warranted until it's proven.
I agree with mostly what you stated. I do think Miami's played a more difficult ACC schedule than Virginia, and I think Virginia has struggled more consistently, and that's why they're doubted, especially against a 4-4 Louisville team against California. So I do think there is some warranted to it. Also, Duke is 7-5. They're 0-2 against ACC teams that are 6-2 and better, but yet they have the tiebreakers for the ACE to make the ACC championship. Yeah. Just think about that mathematically. To determine who the best team is in the ACC, a team that went 0-2 against teams above 500 in the ACC is in. You got the tiebreaker. That just feels wrong, and it feels like if they take up, like, for basketball, it's Team 59 isn't going to win it all in March Madness. They just aren't good enough because they're not, don't have the quality of players doing it. But like Texas this year, I think Texas plays Ohio State. I think they can win that game. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's like 70-30 that Texas beats Ohio State. I think if Vanderbilt played Ohio State, it's like 80-20. But if Virginia, North Texas are these teams are, they're going to get absolutely pasted in the first round. And to me, we're giving teams a guaranteed playoff spot just to get sent to the slaughterhouse. I wouldn't have a problem if instead of giving the conference championship, just give it to the best team ranked in the conference instead going forward, the 5 highest ranked teams.
Okay.
I know it's not pretty.
Here. Okay. This is where I stand on this. So I addressed this last night. I've addressed it in the past, but it's obviously become glaring with this Duke situation, but it's come up many times. So I agree with your angst. I don't necessarily agree with the result of where you're headed, much like an X post that I responded to from a guy that I know the other day about such things. And he came to the same conclusion with the rankings needing to determine conference championship game berths. This is what I'll say. Obviously, we both know that this is the byproduct of these leagues becoming too large. So when they're too large, you result with situations like Duke, Miami, Georgia Tech. Who am I missing? The other 6,
SMU and Pitt.
Whoever else is involved in that. Yes, that 6-2 conglomerate of 4 to 5 teams. And I went through it last night, and I'm looking and I'm going through my memory of who played whom, and the number of games that if everyone played everyone versus the number of games that were played between those teams is minuscule. It's like a third of the games that should have been played. So these teams aren't playing each other, and then then it results in this issue. To your point, after head-to-head, which obviously doesn't exist when there's when either the teams didn't play or there's a multi 3+ team tie, that is, to me, the one legitimate tiebreaker. 2 teams are 6-2. They're tied for second place. They played. One of them won the game. They go to the championship game. After that, the rest of these tiebreakers are completely random. They do not select the best performing team. They just come up with some type of random grouping to differentiate teams that makes no sense. Just because Duke, Miami, and SMU and Georgia Tech played these 3 other bad teams, and one of them happened to upset one of them that disqualifies them. What that also tells us is that outside of those common opponents, that team that just got eliminated had a better record by 1 game than all those other teams. So this common opponents business makes no sense to me.
Right. Well, to me, this is getting to a bigger problem than I think you're even alluding to. I don't view the conference championship games as that valid in terms of determining the best team in the conference because of how large these conferences are.
Sure.
Like, if Virginia or Duke, whoever wins the ACC, that will not change my opinion at all that Miami is by far the best team in the ACC. And if the goal of just giving a playoff spot is just for representation purposes, then why don't we also just say, hey, you proved it also by incentivizing non-conference games. You went out and scheduled this really difficult non-conference game. You won it. Therefore, we're going to reward you by putting you in the college football playoff. And then Virginia gets to go to a nice bowl game that doesn't get to ruin the college football playoff. They still get to claim their ACC champions, and they get to have a nice season. I don't understand why we can't do that.
But by what objective criteria did we determine that Miami's better than Virginia? Did we just think Miami's better than Virginia? What did they do besides
they beat Notre Dame
on a walk-off field goal in August?
Their schedule is much more difficult, I would say. and they've been more
But whose
dominant.
fault is that? It's not Virginia's fault.
It's not Virginia's fault, but they've been more dominant against a better schedule.
I
Miami
guess
has.
they have.
No, they have been.
Losing to SMU and Louisville has been dominant.
No, well, their domination over Pitt, NC State, those level of teams where Virginia just escapes by.
Okay. I get that, but when they both play roughly the same schedule and they're 10-2, I just think that the bottom line to where you're headed with this and other things, other posts and so forth that I've seen is this playoff committee is flawed at best. They have shown that
Right.
each and every year, and probably this is their crowning achievement this year.
Yeah, with Notre Dame especially.
We've got a flawed playoff committee making rankings, and we're going to give them even more power to decide who goes to conference championship games.
No, I'm not saying I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that Miami's going to the conference championship game. Miami plays Duke for the conference championship game. Virginia wins the conference championship game. They don't go to the playoff. Miami goes to the playoff since they're the highest ranked team in the ACC. So all I'm doing is saying, hey, Virginia, you won the ACC. You had a nice season. Instead of going to the college football playoff and probably losing by 30, you got to go to the Citrus Bowl.
I don't work in probables.
I understand that, Mark, but eventually at some...
You know what, Virginia, you had a great season. You won the ACC championship, but we're going to leave you at home because you'll probably get blasted, just like Arizona State probably was going to get blasted last year, but they didn't get blasted. I don't want to take that away. You usually fight for competition on the field. Then
Miami did beat Notre Dame, who's in the playoff.
Then we need to fix scheduling. We need to fix scheduling. Not say, you know what, your schedule sucks. If Texas A&M, let's say, would have lost another game, people would be claiming, and some are, even with
I don't think Texas A&M that was going to be
sucks in the SEC, so you shouldn't have a playoff spot. Well, Texas A&M can't do anything about that. Give us a better schedule. We'll beat those teams.
Right, but this is what I was telling Corey and you a few weeks ago on the Big Ten Live Show. We're moving into college basketball territory, and this is what we've become. You're going to have teams with better records not make it because they play inferior schedules. So if I was on the committee, I would personally have a 9-3 Texas team in the playoffs, and I might have the Texas A&M Aggies out of the college football playoffs, despite a 2-game difference. Because that's just how much more I think Texas has proven over the course of the season than Texas A&M. Now,
and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying that why are we penalizing a team that was given a schedule? Like Texas A&M went out. Texas A&M went out and scheduled a game at Notre Dame. So they did their best to go out and schedule about as difficult a game as you can schedule. And then they were given a crappy SEC schedule by whom? The SEC.
Right, but Texas A&M at least is on the bubble because they beat Notre Dame. If they lost that game, they wouldn't have been on the bubble at all because their crappy schedule. And this exact argument leads to, well, even in college basketball, you got to expand it from 68 to 124 teams. Well, in football, you're seeing people push the 2014 playoff model. I can't help it. There's always going to be schedule inequities when you have this large of conferences.
Yeah, you can't predict the future.
Right. Yeah. So, unfortunately, some teams are going to be completely screwed over every single year because of the size of the conference. That's just the reality of the situation. Unless you want to determine, like, the Southwest Conference comes back from the dead, or the Pac-12 comes back from the dead. That's the only real way to fix it. But I think the best course of action going forward is just looking at the strength of schedule, the strength of the team, how well they've done on the field, and say, well, this 11-1 team played all the bottom in the SEC. You've got this Texas team who beat them, who went to Ohio State, who only lost to them by 7, and who's the number 1 team in the country. They went and beat Oklahoma. They've proven more than the 11-1 Texas A&M Aggies. Now,
okay. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt your point?
No, yeah. You said, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, you said, hold on, and pointed your finger up to get me to stop. So, yes, I would say you did.
Okay. I thought you were finished.
No, I was.
I didn't say, hold on. I was just going to say, you've talked to me about this topic enough to to probably have a pretty good understanding of where I stand, which is probably about 70% in your camp. So my issue with this is, again, you've heard me enough, looking at schedules, looking at past the record to the schedules and the performance against the schedules, not just because you played a bunch of really tough teams and lost 42-10 every week. Should you be given some kind of consideration for that? Obviously, you got to perform well, like Texas did at Ohio State, for example, like Notre Dame did against Texas A&M, etc. The point being, though, we can go too far in that direction and say, you know what, this 7-5 team over here, this schedule is brutal. No, they didn't beat anyone because they played 5 really elite teams and they played well against most of them. Like, let's say they got blown out once, but the other 4, man, they were within 1 score of Ohio State and Oklahoma and Oregon and somebody else. But at some point, you got to win some games.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, Texas has 9 wins.
On the other end of the spectrum, saying you're 11-1, but you know what? Your schedule sucks. Oh, we gave you the schedule, but your schedule sucks. Therefore, we're going to keep you out of the playoff.
So how come nobody's pounding the table for James Madison? They're probably going to be left out of the college football playoff.
That's an extreme because obviously they don't play anyone. Texas
they played Louisville.
They played Louisville, but let's not compare Texas A&M's schedule to James Madison's.
No, but my point is, if instead of playing Louisville, they played whoever in the FCS instead of Louisville went 12-0, people would be like, well, they're 12-0. They went undefeated in the G5. It's really hard to go undefeated anywhere. Don't matter the level of college football. They belong in the college football playoff. My point is, the problem is how big the conference is in the schedule inequities. I'm not going to argue for a 7-5 team that's under this model that we currently got to be in the college football playoff. My only point is there is a certain point where a team has so many wins over a team with a impressive record. And it is very impressive what Texas A&M has done. But when they have no meat on the bone, and when the only team that they've played with any pulse to make the college football playoff, they could absolutely handle throughout the entire course of the game. Do we want that team in the playoff? Because if they played Ohio State and Texas played someone else, Texas would be in the college football playoff, and Texas A&M would probably be out. And to me, I don't want that. I want everyone to be incentivized to play as many big-time non-conference games as possible. In order to do that, how about this? You get 3 chances to control your destiny. Schedule as many tough games as possible. That way, if in case you do get a crappy SEC or ACC or whatever conference schedule, you've got these 3 massive non-conference games you can lean back on. That's what I would want.
Well, so there's an issue with that because obviously these teams aren't going to go out there and schedule Georgia, Ohio State, and Clemson as their non-conference schedule 10 years in advance because they don't know what conference schedule they're going to have that particular season to try to guard against having the easiest schedule in their conference. Also, they shouldn't have to do that. Again, the conferences need to do a better job of scheduling equitable schedules. I know that is easier said than done, but I've been able to accomplish it much better than they have. Again, you can't foresee the future. So some teams fall and rise. I'm just trying to determine to what extent you're pushing this narrative. Indiana didn't schedule anyone in their non-conference schedule.
Yeah, but to me, they're fine. Indiana beat Oregon. They have proven because of that Oregon win and how they won that game that they are one of the 12 best teams and they belong in the college football playoff. My only issue is if you have played nobody that is any decent and even close to the college football playoff, you get one opportunity, you get manhandled in that game. Why should that team be in? It's like in college basketball, that group of 5 team who goes 31-4 and loses their conference championship game and they're out. Even though they scheduled a decent non-conference schedule, they're just not good enough. And unfortunately, we're going by your record. So Texas at 9-3 will be left out, and Vanderbilt will probably be left out, and Notre Dame will be in. But it is what it is. That's all I really got for you, Mark. It was a good discussion. Enjoyed the debate. Look forward to the ranking show when everything's basically the same, except for Utah falling to 15 and Texas at 13 and Vanderbilt at 14.
Thanks, Surreal. All right, we get a comment here just to address this before we take our next call. And again, the purpose of this live stream was to talk head coaches, but we can talk about whatever you'd like. We're just here to talk college football playoff, but obviously Alex Golesh to Auburn. We've got Pat Fitzgerald to Michigan State. We've got Lane Kiffin to LSU, and we've got John Sumrall to Florida. And therefore, we've got other openings to talk about because of those coaches leaving those fine institutions. Eric is saying here, Texas is no different than Michigan. Texas is no different than Michigan, except they didn't lose to a 3-9 Florida team. No, you may want to check Texas' schedule against Michigan's. No comparison. No comparison. All right. Michigan didn't beat Vanderbilt. Michigan didn't beat Texas A&M. Michigan didn't beat Oklahoma. Oh, Michigan didn't beat Oklahoma, did they? No, they didn't. No comparison, Texas and Michigan. No. Let's not make that. Let's not make that mistake. I was going to pull up my top 25. That actually makes sense. I actually don't have Michigan and Texas separated by much, but there's no comparison in terms of their argument for a playoff spot. None. They actually both played Ohio State too, didn't they? Michigan got to play Ohio State at home, and Texas had to play them on the road. And the results of those two games were vastly different. Yes. There is a great deal of distinction between Texas and Michigan. So, all right, folks, I'm sure that there are about 52 other comments in the chat that I would jump on just like that one, but that one just caught my eye. All right, let's keep it rolling. We got Will stopping by. Will, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, here to talk playoff and some coaching.
There we go.
This may make people angry,
Okay.
but I know their resume's decent. But do we really want to see that Oklahoma offense in the playoff, Mark? Like, it's just
Will, please. Will, don't do this. Don't make me do this. Oh, we're going to put the most entertaining teams in the playoffs?
Well, I know, but like I just feel like that the Oklahoma team, I mean, maybe they'd be able to compete with some teams, but like that offense I just don't think can do much in the
Okay. USC gets a playoff spot. Should we give them a playoff spot because they got a
Well,
better
no, but I mean, give Miami a spot over them.
No, there's no comparison between those two teams. No.
I mean, I just don't think Oklahoma will be able to compete.
Let me correct myself. I'm not saying that Miami can't beat Oklahoma. What I'm saying is there's no comparison between what they've accomplished this year. There's no comparison between those two teams. No. I will if Oklahoma was left out of the playoff, like if the committee came out and said, we're leaving Oklahoma out of the playoff, even though we had them 8th last week and they actually beat LSU, man, that was ugly. We don't want this team in the playoff. Look at that offense. I would do one of two things. You would see me either vanish from YouTube. I would just disappear. You would never see me again. I would never watch another college football game, or I would like go to a college football game and like burn something down, or I would go to one extreme or the other, because that would be complete injustice. I saw, and this is what I call them, Will, but I have too much respect for you and too much love for you because you've been so good to us. So I will remove you from these comments. But I saw some of those comments on social media last night, and I came on here and I basically called all of those people morons and idiots, and that those sports writers should be handed pink slips.
All right. It's just like
you don't like how they play. You don't like how they look. It's
disgusting.
I think Oregon's uniforms are ugly. Leave them out of the playoff. I think what they wore against Washington was one of the most disgusting uniform combinations I've ever seen in my life. I don't want to see Oregon in the playoff.
All right.
Oklahoma beat Alabama. They beat Michigan. Who else did they beat? They had a tough schedule.
No. All right.
Just because you know what? This is way before your time, but I know you're familiar with the game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many people gave Oklahoma a chance against Florida State in the 2000 BCS championship game when they were
That's fair. That's
whatever
fair.
level of?
But I know
People were
FSU
like
fans
joking
blame.
about that going into that game.
I know FSU fans blamed Mark Richt for thinking about Georgia and not thinking about
Oh Lord.
Oklahoma. But
I don't know which fan base complains more, Miami or Florida State fans. Maybe it's just because I've got a show on each one of those teams each week. But my goodness, Miami fans, and I shouldn't go there because my true thought is that every fan base is the same. They all have their classy fans, their knowledgeable fans, their reasonable fans, their delusional fans, their idiot fans, the fans that obviously don't know anything about the team. They all have those. But we had Miami fans on our show once they hit about 5-0, not just saying we want to make the playoff or we think we got a good shot at the playoff. No, that wasn't what was in the chat. It was like, we want Ohio State, and we're like asking me like who they should play in the national championship game. And I'm like, can you win a meaningful game first? One? Can this program win one meaningful game in like 25 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's with Miami. Like, I feel like for a lot of fan bases, like the people that go to the school are pretty generally intelligent, but it's the Subway alumni that have rough takes. Mark, with the Lane situation, I mean, it's ugly, but I mean, I feel like Ole Miss, like this is similar to what he did to Tennessee. It's just that everything got moved around.
Well, it's not
so it's fault. Worse.
Do you blame Lane Kiffin? Do you have an issue with Lane Kiffin in particular?
He could have gone about things in a bit of a cleaner way, especially like not cussing out that reporter, like with the state troopers around him. That was a bad luck.
No, I didn't see anything about that or hear about it. When was that?
It was like, I think it was it after the game or was it? I think it was after the Egg Bowl. I think he like went over to like a reporter and said, I think the reporter called him like, he called him like a bad, I'm trying to remember exactly what he called him, but
this is what I think we need to do. First of all, the calendar can be addressed. The college football calendar can be addressed in a number of ways. But Lane Kiffin's not doing anything that hasn't been done 200 other times. A coach leaving his team at the end of the season before they're done with their season. It's just amplified because they're in a college football playoff. Okay. But this is done. And in the past, our issue was a coach left his program and he signed all those players and he had a commitment to those players and they signed knowing, hey, I'm going to play for that coach. And this is part of the reason I'm going to this school. Obviously, every player is different. Some of them that would be 5th on their list and others might be 2nd on their list. But they decided I'm playing at said school because of that coach. Well, he upped and left them.
Matthew Goss said it. That's what he said. I couldn't think of what he said, but it's a bit explicit.
But we would never have coaches leaving jobs that way. They would have to stay at their job. They could never leave the job. Okay, if we're going to do that, then the school should be committed to never firing them. Obviously, none of those things are ever going to happen. So Lane Kiffin is not doing anything different than what 200 other coaches have done. And there's about 10 or 12 of them that do it every year. His team's just in the playoff. Now, if we want to honor contracts, we could do that. We could put such a, like when I sign a contract, I got to live up to the contract. So we could do that. The teams have to live up to the contract when they fire the coach before the contract's up. We could have contracts really mean something. For some reason, they don't in sports. I don't understand that. But if somebody could look up Lane Kiffin's contract at Ole Miss and when it expires, I'm sure he's got like another 5 years on his contract. That's fine. You can leave the Ole Miss job, but you got to pay 5 times $8 million. You're out for $40 million if you want to leave this job. That's fine. Go ahead and do it. I don't know why contracts aren't upheld in sports. I don't know why players are constantly, it doesn't seem to happen so much now, but for a couple decades, players were constantly breaking their contracts. It's just insane.
Yeah. Mark, which of the group of 5 coaches do you think will be the most successful? And I don't mean by making the playoff. I mean by the standard of their program. Which do you think will perform the best? Silverfield, Sumrall, or Golesh?
Silverfield, Sumrall, Golesh, meaning that Sumrall and Golesh generally have the same expectations. Auburn and Florida, and then Arkansas would be less. Well, I think Sumrall, based on everything I know, to me, he's the safest hire. I think although Silverfield's done a nice job. Silverfield took over a long line of successful coaches there. He was kind of handed.
I feel like Sumrall not a long line, but Willie Fritz left him in a good spot.
Yes, exactly. That as well. That's true. Yeah.
Well, I think Golesh, to me, is a little more proven because South Florida wasn't at a good spot. So I would guess Golesh, but
yeah, no, that's a fair point about Golesh building something as opposed to the other guys who were handed programs in good shape.
Yeah, but to me, Pat Fitzgerald's most fascinating. Going back to the Big Ten.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. Maybe I should have seen that coming. I thought about Pat Fitzgerald like mid-season going to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that would be a more fit. I feel like Michigan State, like their fan base, has higher expectations, but they can't even. But they're like Scott Frost, Nebraska levels right now. So I don't know how much time he'll get.
Well, Michigan State had close to a 10-year run of Mark D'Antonio winning Big Ten championships and going to Rose Bowls. So I guess it can be done, although it's obviously more difficult with the bulked up Big Ten.
Eric Morris, I forgot about him. Yeah, he's going to Oklahoma State. I like that hire for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I thought that they did rather well with that one myself. Yep. Okay, Will, anything else today?
No, I knew that would probably get I knew that would get a rise out of you, the Oklahoma quote, but I mean they've done enough to get it.
I understand people can go on and on about how ugly a football team is and that they don't want to see. That's perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. That's just like I have no issue with somebody saying, me included, Notre Dame's better than Miami. I think Notre Dame's better than Miami. I have no issue with that. But that would not change my my vote if I was on the committee, or my selection of I have to honor the result on the field that Miami is going to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame until something changes. And obviously nothing is going to change because they're done with their seasons.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, even though Notre Dame's defense is night and day, like it's the result on the field. So, I mean, it's just the Miami fans are obnoxious about it. That's annoying, but they're the ones that rub me the wrong way. But I understand what they're saying.
I think that any fan base would be obnoxious about being left out of the playoff if they felt as though they were being gypped. And it is the only head-to-head comparison that the committee is ruling in the opposite direction.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate you being here. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got Robert stopping by. Robert, what's going on?
What's up, Matthew? I love your takes. They're a bit different from a lot of the mainstream takes.
Oh, okay, Robert, is there anything you can do to increase your volume? Like you can barely hear you.
Can you hear me better now? Any better?
It's a little bit better. I'll let the chat decide if they can hear you fairly well. I can hear what you're saying, but yeah, people are saying that they can't hear you.
All right. Well, I'm full. I'm sorry. I'm pulled over, ready to get some gas. I'm headed back to Charlotte, home of the worst conference championship in the history of college football. Are you hearing me at all?
I can. We'll just basically, if you can make one statement, and then we'll just go from there, and hopefully you can call back sometime.
All right. Here's my statement. I'll speak loudly.
Yep.
Here's my. Okay. There's two main problems. The main being, I'm an Ole Miss fan, but let's put that aside. The main problem, I think we can all agree, is the timeline that the NCAA has thrust upon us this year. We're only 2 years into a 12-team playoff. Okay, so should we give them leeway? I don't know. Look at the dumpster fire that has been created by the coaching carousel this year. So obviously, moving the transfer portal back 1 month did nothing to improve the situation. I think that the NCAA should have anticipated that you would have coaches that would be leaving early. I don't know, about 3 weeks in with Virginia Tech. That's a little crazy. But anyway, I think that you can put most of the blame, you can pile it most upon the NCAA and the timeline. That being said, as far as the Ole Miss situation and the distraction it's caused, not only to the two teams, or originally the three teams involved, the distraction that it's put upon college football in general, you can blame a lot of that on Lane Kiffin. I hear all of this from LSU fans talking about how they're going to pile this blame upon to Keith Carter. I think Keith Carter was led to believe by Sexton and the Kiffin camp that there was a viable chance that he would stay. Whether it was dependent upon the SEC title game or not is irrelevant. He was led to believe that. Okay, so I don't know if he's as Machiavellian as we all think that he may be, but I wouldn't put it past him, because I saw a report last night with Marty, I forget his last name, saying, we're getting reports, he texted Lane, we're getting reports that there are planes that are scheduled to be in the air tomorrow morning. Is that true? Lane Kiffin texts back, no. Complete lie. Okay. Combined with the fact, I'm going to sit here and pray on it. Come on. He already knows he's going. It's a ruse. Can't believe a thing that he says. Okay, fine. That's Lane Kiffin. Farewell. Good riddance. Godspeed. Good luck with him. The fact that we've kept our defensive team, and I couldn't be more happy that Golding is staying. I think he's a great coach. I thought Judge was going to be the coach because he had NFL experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't be more happy with Golding. And I'll wrap it up. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Keep going. It's good stuff.
I really would like to see Charlie Weiss Jr. as the play caller. Now, that's what's still in the air. That because everybody, tries to insinuate that Lane Kiffin is calling every offensive play call from the sideline. Absolutely inaccurate. The vast majority of the plays are called by Charlie Weiss Jr. in the booth. If Lane has something to interject, he will. Okay. And
who else would be calling the plays? Who else would they decide to call the plays beside the co-offensive coordinator? Well, who besides Weiss would call the plays?
Well, if you listen to the media, they're saying that Lane Kiffin calls every play.
But I mean going forward.
If Weiss Jr. leaves.
Oh, okay.
If Weiss Jr. leaves, that's a very legitimate question. That's why I'm concerned with Charlie Weiss Jr. leaving. I mean, I don't expect a big exodus of players, because Lane Kiffin did have a legitimate point in saying that they're just like me. They're here to get paid and to get exposure and to get their draft status up. There's no better way to do that than win in a playoff situation. No matter who's got the headset on, it really doesn't matter. And they're probably going to drop the committee. Forget about Ole Miss. Let's talk about the committee, and then I'll let you go. Let's talk about the committee. The committee has been so outside the realm of consistency, it's become ridiculous. I mean, they love Notre Dame. You got Ivan Mizell, the newest addition to the committee, a Southerner who just wrote a book about Notre Dame. Okay, he obviously loves Notre Dame. There's a huge influence. They created college football. Fine, there's legitimacy to that fact. That legitimacy. It is a fact. They did create college football. Okay, but I'm sorry. Love this guy. Are you kidding me? Ended today. All right. We're in a pretty damn good position, conundrum. We're in a pretty good position. And I wouldn't expect that position is really that much impeded if we keep our play caller as well as I'm sorry to waste all this time, but I mean, this is just the facts of the situation. It's not just a head coach. I'll end on this. It's not just a head coach. It's about the infrastructure in place. It's about the resources that are willing to be allocated. This is something that Ole Miss is to be done. It seems that the feeling that maybe Nick Saban or other voices in his ear had something to do with that. That's fine. I mean, Ole Miss fans have been at this point for the last 2 weeks or longer. Go. Get the hell out. And now it became contentious today with Keith Carter saying, listen, you're not going to talk to the team. We know we're not going to let you coach and poach. If you're going to go, and if any of the other coaches within the offensive staff or otherwise want to go, pardon my French, but get the fuck out. Go. Get out. And you know what? We'll talk to the team. We'll organize this ourselves. We've already secured Golding, which I think is an excellent move. So, I'm done with this guy. And I just wish LSU fans, hey, Godspeed, because if he doesn't win a natty in Baton Rouge in the next 3, maybe 4 years, you're going to fire his ass. And he's going to regret it. But, I'm frankly, I'm glad he's gone, man, because Ole Miss is going to be just fine. But anyway, sorry to take up so much of your time.
No,
I appreciate your different.
No, that's why we got the show here. We appreciate you calling. Thanks for the perspective. And know that Ole Miss is obviously very close to your heart. So appreciate your viewpoint.
Well, it's not that, but the state of college football is close to my heart,
Sure.
too, and I think we all can agree that it's in disarray.
Absolutely. Thanks, Robert. All right. Interesting call there. I can't substantiate a lot of things that he said, but he appears to be pretty close to just keeping up on Ole Miss football and the situation there with Lane Kiffin. Again, I'm not going to defend the way Lane Kiffin went about this. But again, Nick Saban made this comment. It's a very obvious one, but it's attributed to him. But any one of us have said this for years and years and years and years and years, that the problem is not the coaches. This is the only time that they can leave a job. So again, unless we change the calendar of football, which I don't know that this portion of the calendar can be corrected in such a way to avoid this type of situation, because coaches are going to coach through the regular season for the most part, unless they get fired. They're going to coach through the end of the regular season. Then they're going to leave for another job that's either vacant or they're going to have a school pluck them out of their job at the end of the regular season. That's the way it's going to exist. If we could make time stop and we could put parameters on the season and say, you know what, nothing's going to be achieved, nothing's going to be accomplished, there's not going to be any progress toward the next season for 1 month. Therefore, it doesn't matter if you go to a new job, because until February 1st, you can't do anything with your roster. You can't acquire coaches. You can't do any of these things until February 1st, and then you could leave. Therefore, that would safeguard the college football playoff. Maybe they could be explored to some degree, but that doesn't even seem reasonable. So this is elevated in our consciousness because Lane Kiffin's a talker, because he's a polarizing figure anyway, because it's the college football playoff more than anything. This is the first decision like this that has impacted the playoff. And with the expanded playoff, we have expanded the possibility and probability in the future that this will pop up again next year, the following year, maybe twice in 1 year with two particular playoff teams, because we've got more teams. Now, when you're dealing with arguably the 4 best teams in the country and the 4 best programs in the country, most likely those guys are not going anywhere. You know, look at the college football playoff during the 14 playoff. You're talking about the elite of the elite. You're talking about the coaches were Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, Urban Meyer. They were mostly of that ilk. Therefore, they're not going anywhere. Nobody's taking them anywhere. You had very few situations where, it could be a possibility of somebody leaving. But now with the 12-team playoff, there are better jobs, or perceived to be better jobs, outside of the playoff. And that's what's happened here with Lane Kiffin. And unfortunately, Ole Miss is going to be shortchanged from a coaching standpoint in this playoff. They are going to be compromised considerably. Edward says that LSU is going to fall on its face, and I know that a lot of College Football Nation is going to root for that to happen. I can't say that I necessarily care. Again, other than anecdotes like our last caller brought us, and things that we could pick up in terms of stories of Lane Kiffin not handling this the right way. There was, of course, our previous caller before that, Will, let us know that he was combative with some fans outside of the game. That in terms of him leaving his current job to go to another job, this is no different than what's been done over and over and over, about 10 to 15 times per season on Black Sunday. Yeah, man, this has all sorts of ideas rumbling in my head on how to address this. And I'm not a lawyer to determine whether all of these ideas that I have could be enforced. But again, I personally, I don't have the backing, the support, and the money to hire the type of lawyers that I would need to back out of contracts. But every time I sign a contract, I live up to the contract, and I expect the other side to live up to the contract. That's me. But in sports, no contracts mean anything. None of them mean anything. I don't think this is going to be the path to solving this issue, or at least getting us to a better place in this issue. But I think it should at least be explored and pursued by somebody. If the NCAA was doing its job and it was actually running this sport, maybe they could look into what is the feasibility of actually holding the schools, which actually are held accountable to these contracts. That's what the buyout situation is all about. Let's hold the coaches accountable to their end of the contract agreement. Not that they have to stay at the school, but they have to pay some pretty hefty penalty for opting out of a contract, breaking a contract. All right, we got Dr. C stopping by. Dr. C, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Mark? How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not doing well.
Uh-oh.
I'm a Razorback fan, remember?
Sure. And you've got a different head coach and you don't like him, apparently.
Well, this feels like tell me you have no NIL money without telling me you have no NIL money hire. Am I reading this wrong?
Oh, so you're just talking about personally that Arkansas hires a Memphis head coach that they should have been able to get somebody who's more accomplished.
I mean, I feel like if we were going to get someone, Franklin was my first option. Then I wanted Sumrall. Then I wanted Morris. Silverfield, I feel Bobby. We should have kept Bobby.
Okay.
Instead of hiring Silverfield.
So the one thing I will push back on is all you have to do on this very same day is look east and look at two programs that are considered to be higher on the totem pole than Arkansas in Auburn and Florida. And they hired group of 5 coaches with similar success rates as Ryan Silverfield.
Yeah, that is true. I think what the fan base also needed was someone that would, hype up we've been through a lot. We went 2-10, right? So maybe a name that would like Sumrall, right? Sumrall, not necessarily a huge proven track record, but
yeah,
if you've seen his interviews,
sure. You think John Sumrall would have galvanized this fan base more so than Ryan Silverfield by that much?
Not by much, but yes. I think Silverfield, I think we lose to Silverfield, which is a game that we shouldn't have lost. We had some terrible calls.
Okay. Well, you might as well hire the guy if you can't beat him.
Right. Well, our defense, this is the worst Razorback defense I've ever seen. One of the worst I've ever seen ever. That Notre Dame game, if you want to see bad defense, just watch that.
As long as I could stand it.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe it's kind of like, it's like a horror movie. So, yes, I was really hoping with someone that had some recruiting, for example, Morris, right? Morris developing quarterbacks, working and doing very well in his conference with very limited NIL money. And Silverfield apparently has some of the highest NIL in that conference with some of the better talent and still hasn't been able to win it. Those are the things that kind of concern me.
Okay. No, it's not a slam dunk home run hire. There's no doubt about that, but neither did Florida nor Auburn get that kind of hire. But, only time will tell. But I will say that I have a little bit more respect for, and it may prove to be a better hire if the administration is simply focused on this individual being the best coach and program leader that we can find rather than appeasing fans with a name. So if they believe in him and their judgment's good, then they made a good hire, regardless of whether it's going to make a splash. If Arkansas is 7-5 next year, and he has shown significant progress, then that's going to be better than hiring the latest edition of, I don't know, Brian Kelly, and you got a name and people felt good and optimistic for 3 months, but then you got your brains beat in starting in week 2. Do you follow my point? I don't know if it's a good hire or not. I'm just saying that we know that Ryan Silverfield is a capable coach on his level. And this is something that I would love to delve into and may or may not, I don't know if I can devote the time to it, is look at group of 5 hires at the power conference level, maybe over the last 10 to 15 years. And it would be fairly easy to judge whether they elevated the program or decimated the program to some degree based on that hiring to see if that usually works out. But I am simply saying that if the University of Arkansas administration knows what it's doing, I back them in hiring a non-name entity that they believe in, rather than just going after someone who's recognizable just for the sake of it, because they want people to feel good about the hire. Hire the right person and then let them work the job and show that you made a good hire.
Well, I think where the disappointment comes, and you're 100% right, Mark, and I'm trying to come to that conclusion. But I think where the major disappointment comes is we let Pittman go around week 4 or 5. We left him go pretty early. So when you let a coach go that early, you're starting the search early, right? So I think that brought buzz, that people were talking about, Franklin, Matt Campbell, really getting a name to bring this program back to more glory days, right? So we fire our coach early to run an extensive search to get to this point, right? So we fired our coach really early to get Summerfield. It's such an underwhelming hire from a fan standpoint, right?
I totally get that. That it's an underwhelming hire by fans' standpoint. I'm simply saying that if the administration knows what they're doing, then it's going to prove out to be a good hire and not a name value hire.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Juracek, he got Pittman, which I thought was not a terrible hire, because Pittman, when he was at Arkansas's O-line coach, Arkansas was a physical team. They would take you to the woodshed. Pittman goes to Georgia, and they hired an O-line coach from the Buffalo Bills, and you saw it right away. Our O-line was very average. So when I heard that he was getting hired, and players vouched for him, and I thought the administration heard the fans. This hire, I hope it was Juracek knows more than we do.
Okay. Yes. I can't make a judgment on that. Obviously, he has credentials, but they're not overwhelming credentials. It's a C hire. I would welcome anyone to argue that either to the positive or to the negative. You hired a coach who has proven that he can win at a decent rate, at a fairly high rate, but not an overwhelming rate at Memphis. But he was also handed a program that was successful under Mike Norvell, which was successful before him under Justin Fuentes. So it's been a successful program for at least 10 years. So he had momentum on his side when he took the job, and had been in the program prior to that. So it's a decent hire. It's not a bad hire. Well, it may turn out to be a bad hire. I would be surprised if it turns out to be a home run hire. I will go out on a limb right now and say, like, if somebody held a gun to my head, so I guess I'm holding a gun to my own head, I'll say that Ryan Silverfield is going to be the head coach at Arkansas for 4 years, and he's going to, what do they play, 12 games a year, 48? He's going to go like 22-26 in 48 games. He's going to be a completely just like hire, and they're going to get rid of him.
Yeah. So, Mark, who would you have kept? Would you have kept Petrino over Summerfield?
Bobby Petrino can obviously run a football program. He did it well at Arkansas, 2 consecutive top 10 teams. He did it well twice at Louisville to a certain extent. The second tenure wasn't as great. So he's more of a known commodity at the power conference level, especially.
See, because he had such close games with everyone. If he would have just had a defense, right, his own defensive coordinator, if Arkansas had a, from 0 to 10, let's say a 7 at the defensive coordinator, Arkansas is a problem for a lot of folks. I mean, they took Texas A&M, all those teams to very close.
So I'll put it this way. The reason I hesitate is because to College Football Nation, Bobby Petrino's a joke for the obvious.
Mm-hmm.
He was a slight joke to hardcore college football fans because they knew that he did things like, fly to Atlanta when he said he wasn't, and in the middle of the night, and just being kind of underhanded. But then he became a national joke, an over the top joke, when obviously he's screwing around with a volleyball player and wrecked his bike. So put that aside. Outside of Arkansas, that's how Bobby Petrino, that's become his legacy. That's become, until something drastically happens to the positive, that's his calling card. Now, we know from my buddy Ty Hudson, who comes on here to talk Arkansas football, that's not how Bobby Petrino's treated and viewed within the state of Arkansas. By Arkansas fans, they love him because that's the last time they won anything of any significance. So those are two different things. So I'm operating from the national perspective of, I would stay away from Bobby Petrino. He wouldn't be my new head coach, but I'm not sitting in Little Rock, Arkansas, or Fayetteville, or Pine Bluff, or where it really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, remembering Bobby, when he taking us as far as he did, as competitive, and just seeing him leave, and ever since he's left, the program's kind of been mediocre and in shambles, right? Mediocre at best. So seeing him come back was great. But you're right. I think everybody else sees him that way. But in this state, he's respected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Despite his flaws. But yeah, I wish they would have kept him for this hire, right? If we're going to move on from this, potentially giving Bobby a fair shot to get his wide receiver, his wide receivers coach, his O-line coach, quarterback coach, defensive coordinator, etc. Hiring Summerfield, I mean, we'll see where it goes, but it doesn't feel good. Oh, and I'll let you go with this, Mark. Hey, Mark, with the NIL era, can you still be a monster recruiter without NIL?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No, you can't.
Well, that's why I like the Kiffins and the Franklins, because they, what was it? The other guy that was a monster recruiter, Muschamp, before NIL, right? And I was like, those are the kind of people that I wanted at Arkansas, that people that can recruit the program, right? And build those relationships and get those kids that otherwise wouldn't come to U of A. But now without NIL, that was my fear. And I think Arkansas has a serious NIL issue. And it's part of the reason I feel that everyone else said no, and we got this guy.
So here's my short list on what recruits are looking for. Here's my short list. And obviously every person's different. Every student athlete's different. So this changes with each player. But if we could put it all together, this is my guess. This is just a guess of what is their priority list in looking for a school in this day and age. And I'm going to assume we'll leave it down to all the major schools, SEC, Big Ten, all of those schools, and then the top half of the ACC and the Big 12, let's say. So I would say number one is NIL. Number two is, can you develop me into an NFL player? Do you have a track record? Can you prove to me that I can be an NFL player? Point number three would be, I would say winning, but I think that all of these coaches can in some fashion convince the athlete that they can win where they are. Even if you're somewhere like UCLA, you haven't won in 10 years anything and really won championships in close to 30 years. I think you can show that you make a lot of money and you're a good coach and you can win. And actually it may be a draw to some players that they can play early and they can be part of something special, not just on a conveyor belt at Ohio State or Georgia and just the next one in line. But number four would be relationships, that they like the people that they're working with. They like the coach. They believe in the coach. They trust the coach. in some order, and I think I placed them in order, but in some order. Now, hopefully, most of those athletes are not making a decision for money based on $25,000. If they're going to get $1 million at one school and $975 at another school, that they're not going for the very last dollar. If they would rather go to school at the other place. And then there are other things to take into consideration. These kids are, to a large extent, maybe not the guys that we're thinking of, but still student athletes. So they do care how good the school is and what the academic situation is there. And they do care where they are located in the country, whether they want to stay in warm weather, they want to move out west, or they want to stay close to home, whatever that is. So those are other factors. So there's about 8 factors there to some degree that these student athletes are looking at.
Yeah, Mark, I think, I really, I think we have kind of the romanticized thing of like the student athlete chooses the school because, one, you can develop me, to the academics, the relationship with the coach, and then the money was hopefully the last, right? But I think you can't. If I can like drive a Ferrari at the University of Texas as opposed to a Honda at University of Arkansas, well then maybe I want to go to the University of Texas, right? And that's probably a bad comparison because I'm sure their program can develop you as equally as well. But yeah, I mean, I think NIL, we all have a thing. I think it's great, but we need to even the playing field. Do you think the difference in
Why
money
do we need to even the playing field
with NIL?
Like when I hear that comment made,
Mhm.
whether it's in sports or in society, it depends on the motivation and it depends on what that particular person means by evening the playing field. So, for example, I want every, like if I went to the nearest junior high school down the street, I would want every child to be given an equal opportunity to learn, to grow, to develop, to take tests, to write papers, to do their homework, and to prove that their hard work and, let's face it, their inherent God-given ability and brains between their 2 ears. That's not fair. Some people are really smart. Some people aren't so smart. But all that stuff put together is going to earn whatever they've earned. So I want things to be like the opportunity to be equitable, but I don't think we should say, you know what, Jimmy's smarter than Jill, therefore we're going to lift up Jill to this level so she can have as much as Jimmy. No, Jimmy's smarter, Jimmy's working harder. That's the way it is. When I hear we need to even things out, if Ohio State just is more committed to football than Michigan State, so be it. They both get the same check from CBS, NBC, and Fox. But if Ohio State's just more committed to football and hires better coaches and better people and plays in a better football playing state and has built up a brand for the last 100 years that's worth more than Michigan State, then so be it. I'm not for artificially lifting up programs that didn't earn that level of equity.
Yeah, and I see your point, Mark, but I also see, like, for instance, the Duke quarterback, right? I forget who bought him for $8 million. Was it A&M, I think? They paid $8 million
The
for
Duke quarterback?
Yeah.
Malik Murphy last year went to Oregon State. Are you talking about him? You're talking about Darian Mensah left Tulane and went to Duke.
Oh, okay, that was it for $8 million, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think originally he got, he chose Tulane for, the school offered him, the coach, probably all the right reasons, more so than to go to the other school for $8 million, right?
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things, right?
What we're supposed to what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to like take money out of the state budget to give it to Tulane to keep a quarterback? I guess I'm not understanding.
No,
what
but
we're
I
supposed
think
to do.
well, if we can't do it, just so it kind of goes back to the student chooses the best fit for them, not the best financial fit for them, right? So if I wanted to go to UCLA and they're only offering me $500,000 to be there with an IL deals, rather than going to Cincinnati, who really needs me at quarterback and is offering me $2 million, right? And I choose Cincinnati because of the NIL, right? It's
Yeah,
just too big
I
of a
don't
hit.
agree with that.
No,
No. So UCLA has better weather than
absolutely.
Minnesota. So UCLA has better weather than Minnesota. So what do we do for Minnesota to give them weather as good as because UCLA's got an unfair advantage over Minnesota in attracting certain athletes that would say, you know what, I don't want to play in 25-degree weather. I want to play in 75-degree weather. What are we supposed to do for the University of Minnesota?
Well, I would say come see a Minnesota game and you'll see the
No,
stands full.
that's not evening out the. No, it just so be it that you know what, UCLA's got the advantage of having an ocean in Southern California and 75-degree weather in the middle of the winter, and Minnesota
Right.
doesn't. That's just the way it is. But if Minnesota has more billionaires that went to the school, then they can benefit from that. Or if Minnesota just cares more about football than UCLA. I
Right.
don't think we should be artificially evening out situations for schools. They need to figure out if they want to be good at football, then you need to figure out how you're going to be good at football.
Well, I mean, you were looking at that with Texas Tech, right? That feels like an artificially created program, right? Because we've had all these years of football, and Texas Tech has, aside from the year where Michael Crabtree was there, those were the glory days. They haven't really been relevant.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden they invested in buying all these players, and
Good
now
for
they're in the
them.
playoff.
Yeah, good for them. They have the disadvantage of being out in the middle of nowhere in Lubbock, Texas. Now, I have never been in Lubbock, Texas. I never plan on going there, because the only thing there is Texas Tech University, unless somebody wants to fly me there for a game to cover something, then I'll go. But otherwise, I have no reason to go, no desire to go. And so a lot of student athletes don't have a desire to go to Texas Tech. But if Texas Tech is going to say, here's $2 million, and Baylor, TCU, et cetera, only say, here's $1 million, well, then Texas Tech won that player. That's the commitment that they made to the sport.
Mhm.
I don't want to take their money away. I don't want to run a communist college football league.
Isn't this what's kind of happening at Ole Miss and LSU?
We already do that to a certain. We do that to a large extent. If anything, the Ohio States of the world should be pounding the table, saying, "You know what, Big Ten? If every school in the Big Ten makes about $90 million from the TV media rights every year. Okay, so Northwestern makes 90 million, Ohio State makes 90 million. If we distributed that money based on the television ratings and the amount of money that each one of those schools, those football programs, bring into those networks, Ohio State's 90 million. What's 90 million times 18? Whatever that is. 18 teams in the Big Ten, 90 million per. Well, if it was 100 million, it would be like 1.8 billion, I guess.
1.3 billion or something like that.
Yeah. You know how much Ohio State would get out of it? They get like 40% of it. So you'd be sending, not Ohio State, here's your check for 90 million. It'd suddenly be, you know what, here's $600 million. And you know what, Northwestern, you don't get 90 million, you get 8 million. That's about what it would look like. So we already overextend ourselves to lift up the Northwesterns of the world. That's already, we have already gone way too far, in my opinion. No, I wouldn't say we've gone too far. Just that's the baseline amount of revenue that's brought in by these schools. It comes through media rights, and it's fairly, I wouldn't say it's fairly, it's evenly distributed. It's not fairly distributed, it's evenly distributed. So that Ohio State can take that 90 million and raise another 100 million, and Northwestern can take their 90 million and they only raise another 3 million. That's too bad. That's, I think, if anything, we've gone the other direction. We've made it too equitable.
Yeah. And then, well, now there's also the fact that it's a lot more difficult to get into Northwestern than Ohio State, right? So
Sure.
that affects the recruiting. So, but yeah, you're right.
But that's their decision.
Yeah,
Again.
but when stating that, you're right. I don't see why more universities don't do that, because if you look at University of Alabama, I know people from here in Texas that went there just deliberately because of the football team, because they wanted to have a football team that was a winner, right? Because football matters here in Texas, right? And they heard about the university and they seen it on TV and they want to be part of the whole thing, right? So
yeah, well, that's a different discussion, but anytime I've ever heard about anyone making a college decision based on the football team, you can make a decision based on whatever you want, but I think that's a pretty stupid decision.
I think so as well, but the football's different in the South, as they say, right? So a lot of their enrollment was huge once the football team started winning, right? Their enrollment goes up when you have a winning football team. So, yeah, you're right. I think these departments, there's something going on as to why they don't want to invest as much as other places, right? I'm not sure why they want to maybe divvy it up with different sports or something, because apparently Arkansas's issue is an NIL issue. I don't know how true that is, but we lost a lot of players because apparently they weren't happy with the money that they weren't getting, right? So this is kind of a problem. We lost a huge amount of the 2023 class supposedly because of NIL issues. So, and that really hurt us. So we felt those effects now, right? So yeah. Well, Mark, that's about it. Thanks. Thanks for kind of like hearing me out and kind of explaining the NIL. So do you think, to let you go, net positive NIL?
Net positive? What do you mean?
Is it a net positive, negative? Overall, are you happy that
NIL?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a negative for the sport. For the sport itself, it's a negative, but we would not be America if we would not allow NIL. Like, how can you justify not allowing anyone to benefit from their name, image, and likeness? Like that was completely against the law, what was going on in collegiate athletics before NIL.
Yeah.
True,
yeah.
Some 15-year-old can get on TikTok and make money. Why can't a college football player?
Definitely.
But I don't think overall it's good for the sport.
Do you think NIL is versus transfer portal, which one is more beneficial?
Well, I don't think either one of them is beneficial to the sport. I would say that the transfer portal is worse for the sport because I don't know that people care that much what players are making or that they are making money, but they do care that their favorite player just left their school to go somewhere else.
Yeah, true. Definitely. All right, Mark. Well, that's all I got for you. As always, thank you for taking my call. And we'll see if I'll cheer on the Hogs next season. I'm not sure. It
right,
depends on it. Yeah.
Yep.
Take care. Bye.
All right. VOCFB.com put together your favorite two brands. That would be the Voice of College Football, of course, and then it would be your college football team. So put those two together, and you can order some merch at VOCFB.com. See up here, we've got teams, and then Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Clemson, Colorado, Florida, on down the line. I've got 20 or 25 teams to choose from. So, for example, if you're an Iowa football fan, voila, Voice of College Football, Iowa merch. We've got hats, tees. We've got crew necks and koozies and tumblers and mugs available for you there. The most important thing that I will say today is that the Amazon link's in the description section of this video and all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide to keep us going here at the Voice of College Football. So, again, Amazon link, description section of the video. Please grab it. Please use it, especially during this holiday season. All right. If you notice, and you probably have not, we usually go with red or black that complements the background on our graphics here. But I went with purple because of Lane Kiffin going to LSU. And then the more I added to the title, the more it just involved about 4 different coaches. So there you have it. So do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Join Minnie and Doreen tonight with the Ladies of College Football. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then I'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday night to talk college football playoff, of course, championship week, championship weekend. I believe I will be matching up some common opponents, championship previews. We will do that as well. Oh, my goodness. Somebody's asking for me to run down the Miami Notre Dame situation. I think I've done about 17 hours on that in the last few weeks. So I'm sure I will do more. We appreciate you being here, and we will see you on Monday night.